Hello and welcome. Tonight, Director General of the World Trade Organization, WTO, Osun Okonjo-Iweala, asked African leaders to look inward for funding opportunities to develop the continent. Federal government asked Nigerians in the diaspora to drive economic growth in the country by being good ambassadors of the country. Governor Obasani of Kaduna State flags off distribution of billions of naira worth of farm inputs with the aim of ensuring year-round farming and bolster food security in the state. And Ukraine says it will not attend the upcoming Russia-US talks billed for Saudi Arabia. Since the emergence of Mr. Donald Trump as the 47th President of the United States of America, has made some major pronouncements which has sent cold shivers to many countries around the world. A notable one is his own decision to scrap the U.S. funding agency USAID. But rather than cry over spilled milk, African leaders are now being challenged to look inward and take their own destinies in their own hands. And that advice is coming from none other than the Director General of the World Trade Organization, Dr. Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala, who was speaking at the headquarters of the African Union in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia. Well, according to her, now more than ever, African leaders need to come up with creative ways to fund their projects.
Access to aid, I think we can begin to think of it as a thing of the past. We really have to focus on two things: attracting investment and mobilizing our own domestic resources. And I think that is a theme that is running through almost all the meetings here at the AU. I think African leaders are recognizing that this is a challenge, but we can also see it as an opportunity. And again, I'm glad to say that it's emerging that, look, this could be looked at as an opportunity. This morning, we had a session with the Multilateral Development Bank Association of Africa itself, along with President Mahama. One of the things we talked about is how do we better mobilize our own resources on the continent to invest in ourselves. I pointed out that we have about $250 billion worth of pension funds resources on the continent, which we need to find a way to tap. First, the pension funds need to look at their regulations to see how they change it so that they can invest more on the continent rather than investing more outside. And pension funds from South Africa is the biggest, but you have South Africa, Nigeria, Kenya, Morocco, Botswana, Namibia, so many countries. When you start totaling the resources, it's huge, hugely significant. 250 billion is the estimate that I have. We have these multilateral development banks. We need to capitalize them better, capitalize them properly so that their balance sheet can expand. They have a combined balance sheet now of about 70 billion.
Still on the AU summit, present and represent your nation positively, help dispel bad narratives and continue to drive economic growth for your country. Well, that advice is coming from the Minister of Information and National Orientation, Mr. Mohammed Idris, to Nigerians in the diaspora, as he met with a community of Nigerians living in Ethiopia as the sideline of the 38th African Union Summit in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia. Our State House correspondent Larry Lasisi reports.
The headquarters of the African Union, venue of the 38th African Union Summit, is busy as different meetings are taking place on different issues. One of such meetings is on the African Continental Free Trade Area, AFCFTA. The Minister of Industry, Trade and Investment is participating in the meeting, and she outlines the position of Nigeria on the agreement.
Well, as Nigeria, you know, we're competitive in services. We've been paying close attention to the digital trade agenda. South Africa, Kenya, other countries have also offered to champion digital trade. So we're here to continue to push our agenda and to make sure that we progress the discussion for Nigerian youth, particularly our fintechs.
The meeting proceeds into a closed-door session, and a statement released afterwards indicates that the former president of the Republic of Niger, Mahamadou Issoufou, who is the African Union AFCFTA's champion, commends President Bola Tinubu for his efforts on the digital trade protocol. In his official report, which was presented during the meeting, the former president praised President Tinubu and Nigeria for taking steps towards implementation of the agreement, including organizing a roundtable highlighting the protocol. Another event on the sideline of the summit is the signing of the Memorandum of Understanding on the provision of strategic sea lift to the African Union by Nigeria. Minister of Defense signed the agreement on behalf of Nigeria.
Nigeria pledged to support the EU with sea lift, that is moving soldiers, equipments and others by sea when needed. This is in support of the African Standby Force operationalization, and this is indeed a very big step, and it really shows the strength of Nigeria and our capability to support Africa.
Meanwhile, a delegation of Nigerians living in Ethiopia met with the Minister of Information and the chairman of the Nigerians in Diaspora Commission on the sideline of the summit.
One of our work plans.
The president of the delegation highlights some of their challenges and contributions.
One of our work plans this year is to organize enhancing economic development using the inter-African trade. We are going to organize a workshop. This to actually to give awareness to our both people in the community here in Addis Ababa and recent people in Nigeria to know, to harness the opportunity of the inter-African trade.
The Minister of Information commends them for their efforts and emphasized the role of Nigerians in diaspora as ambassadors of Nigeria, a position supported by the chairman of the Nigerians in Diaspora Commission.
The diaspora community, the remittances and the exchanges that are happening between Nigerians and those in diaspora now is helping to actually improve the capital inflow, and in the process also improving on our FDIs, the foreign direct investment to the country. And this is why the last point I will mention is key, the issue of orientation, the issue of advocacy, the issue of enlightenment. You are the biggest ambassadors, like the chairman has said. You are the biggest ambassadors of Nigerians wherever you find yourself, especially here in this very great hub of Ethiopia.
As we engage with you, it's about what you want to do in Nigeria and how you can be part of the progress and development of your country, Nigeria.
The minister assured them that the federal government is working to drive economic reforms, infrastructural development, and other developments that can transform the country. From Addis Ababa, Lanre Lasisi, Channels Television News.
Let's come back here home in Nigeria. Let's head to Kaduna State, where agriculture seems to be receiving a major boost as the governor of the state overseeing flags of the distribution of farm inputs worth billions of naira to smallhold farmers. The initiative, which aims to ensure year-round farming and bolster food security in the state, received commendation from the Minister of State for Agriculture, Senator Sahabi Abdullahi, who has also asked the other states to follow Kaduna's lead.
Since assuming office, the Uba Sani administration in Kaduna State has prioritized agriculture by investing hugely in the sector. For instance, the state government allocated 74 billion naira, representing 9.5% of the total budget, to agriculture, among other interventions.
Please let us give His Excellency, the Governor, a very big round of applause.
And today, the state government is kicking off another initiative, the procurement of several farm inputs worth billions of naira for free distribution to smallholder farmers across the 23 local government areas of the state for the 2025 all-season farming.
This level of commitment underscores the governor's determination to make agriculture a pillar of economic growth, ensuring food security, job creation, and improving the livelihoods of our people. With this level of investment, we are not just supporting farmers, we are building an economy that is self-sustaining, productive, and resilient.
The direct beneficiaries and other stakeholders applaud the intervention, which they describe as the first of its kind in Kaduna State.
Southern Kaduna today have never known a better standard of living and peace, that our farmers can go to farm with their eyes closed, work in their farms, and come back like in this very administration.
Congratulations for what you've done. This is terrific, and we hope that inshallah our people will benefit from this efforts you have made. Thank you.
In his remark, the Minister of State for Agriculture, Senator Sahabi Abdullahi, commended Governor Sani for making huge investments in agriculture.
Kaduna State is the bride of northern Nigeria, and you are working very hard to return that shining light once again to Governor Kaduna State. Thank you, Your Excellency. It means year-on-year production, we ensure that we have enough food to give to our citizens.
When it came his turn to speak, Governor Uba Sani said the empowerment program goes beyond building a more resilient, productive and competitive agricultural sector.
The impact of this intervention will be far-reaching, increase agricultural output, will not only improve food security, but also significantly reduce Nigerians' reliance on food imports, thereby easing pressure on the foreign reserve.
The governor also addressed other interventions by his administration to other challenges facing the agriculture sector.
In the livestock sector, we vaccinated 850,000 cattle, 250,000 sheep and goats, and 250 poultry to prevent transboundary animal diseases and protect both human and animal health.
This intervention is coming after a similar one in 2024, where the state government distributed 500 trucks of fertilizers to over 120,000 farmers, provided 69,000 smallholder farmers with quality seedlings, agrochemicals and mechanization tools, in addition to reconstructing rural roads to improve farmers' access to markets and reducing post-harvest losses.
Minimize the over-dependence on oil and invest in Arabic farming. And that's the call coming from the gum and Arabic farmers in Yobe State to the federal government. Well, according to the farmers, the business, which is facing challenges of climate change and insecurity, now has the export value of about $5,000. In this special report, Channels Television visited Rubber Research Institute and Federal University, both in Gashel in Yobe State, where the tree is largely grown for commercial purposes.
Gum arabic, known as acacia gum, is an economic tree also used to fight desertification. Found growing wild in large commercial quantities within Borno and Yobe states, with both states producing 80% of the total of 2.5 million hectares of land cultivated in Nigeria. Experts describe it as an untapped gold mine that faces poor funding despite its value chain. The head of Forestry and Wildlife Department, Federal University, Gashua, Yobe State, illustrates how a tapping tool is used to produce gum arabic.
Trees of gum arabic tree, and in northern Nigeria we have 3 common varieties. Acacia Senegal, but is specifically called Senegalia. Another species or variety is Acacia Sayel, and another species is Acacia loraki.
In Nigeria, the cultivation of the product, which has a high export value, is facing challenges of insecurity and lack of support from government, as a 50 kilogram of grade 1 gum arabic is currently sold at about 300,000 naira.
Whenever we are talking of gum arabic, we are talking of the huge amount of money, huge amount of not only naira but in dollars, because today in Nigeria, specifically northern Nigeria, Borno, Yobe, Jigawa, we are planting this gum arabic in form of forest plantation, in form of agroforestry, and we are getting a lot of money.
As a forester, there are a lot of things in the forest. Not only gum arabic, there are a lot of things that have been abandoned by the government. And this gum arabic, if you look at it, if you look at the modern world, you see a lot of countries use it even as a source of their national income.
Channels Television's crew paid a visit to the Rubber Research Institute Gashua Gum Arabic substation, where the gum arabic trees are grown in large quantities. One of the research officers explains that the product is largely used in pharmaceutical industries, among others.
At the institute level, our target is to conduct research on the various aspects of production, utilization of gum arabic.
As the challenges of insecurity in the northeast forced Nigeria to drop from its second to fourth position in the gum arabic production ranking in the world.
In part two, after the break, Nigeria police neutralizes terrorists in different parts of the country and also rescued kidnapped victims. Please join us again. Welcome back. If you've just joined us, you're watching the news at 10 on Channels Television, broadcasting live from Lagos. A reminder of our main stories. Director General of the World Trade Organization, Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala, asks African leaders to look inward for funding opportunities to develop the continent. Federal government asks Nigerians in the diaspora to drive economic growth in the country by being good ambassadors of the country. Governor Obasani of Kaduna State flags off distribution of billions of naira worth of farm inputs with the aim of ensuring year-round farming and bolster food security in the state. And Ukraine says it will not attend the upcoming Russia-US talks billed for Saudi Arabia. The National Bureau of Statistics is expected to release new data and methodology for the computation of Nigeria's inflation rate and, of course, the gross domestic products, and that's the GDP. Though Valentine's Day may be over, this could also mark the beginning of Nigeria's love affair with new statistics. So tonight, Babajide Ogunsanwo, founder of Leadership by Data and Channels Television's data analyst, is here to share more analysis, of course, insights and intelligence about the revised GDP and inflation figures, and definitely tell us this love story between Nigeria and the new figures.
As you've described, it's a love affair between the National Bureau of Statistics, the government, the country. And
yeah, but let's start right away. I mean, the Central Bank of Nigeria had postponed the Monetary Policy Committee meeting, perhaps in order to see the results of the revised GDP and inflation statistics and all those numbers. Is the Bureau of Statistics likely to release these reports this week? And if they do, how will these reports affect the decision of the CBN and, of course, the government at large?
When the National Bureau of Statistics had a workshop with journalists and other critical stakeholders, the promise then was that by the end of January we will have the new rebased consumer price index, as the inflation, and the new gross domestic product report. The plan was before the end of January. So there's a high possibility that this week will be the week when the new love affair with economic numbers will start. Well, you talked about the CBN, and there are three things Nigerians are really talking about. The first is, what exactly is this GDP CPI rebasing? The second is, how significant are these numbers? And the third is what you talked about, which is, how will these new numbers influence the decision of the CBN? So let's start with the first, which is, what exactly is this GDP rebasing and the inflation rebasing for the common man? And I'll start by looking at this. Yes, we all are familiar with this. Every perhaps 1 to 3 years, it is recommended that you take your optical glasses to an optometrist, your eye doctor, to change the lens. Now, Anne, changing this lens wouldn't change what is in front of you, but it will allow you to see clearly, more clearly, especially if you change it as recommended. Again, it won't change what is in front of you, but it will allow you to see more clearly. And so in simple terms, what the NBS does and a lot of other countries do is every 5 years, they change their economic lens. It doesn't change what is in front of you. If what is in front of you is gold, and it allows you to see how shiny the gold is. And if what you really have in front of you is poo, fizzes, it allows you to see the states of this poo. So what we're expecting is our economy wouldn't change. Your income, the cash you have in the bank wouldn't change, but it will allow data users, the government, and all of us to clearly see what is in front of us in economic terms. So that answers the first question by what exactly is this GDP CPI rebasing. The second question is, how significant are these numbers? You know, and when this GDP concept really was started by Russian Simon Kuznets, the plan was that it was going to allow countries to really measure the value of their goods and services. Then during the World War, it wasn't a political number. However, it has been hijacked by politicians. The inflation reports and how the economy is growing is now more used by politicians than economists, because it has an influence on elections. It allows them to talk about their performance and if they are doing well. And this is even coming very critically because we remember what happened in April 2021 when the INEC released the new dates for the 2023 elections. That was in April 2021. So the expectation is in the next 10 weeks, INEC might be releasing the dates for the 2027 elections. But what's in front of us allows us to answer the third question. How will Nigeria's CBN react to new economic indicators? We remember what happened a decade and a half ago when the CPI was rebased in November 2009. Then the moving average inflation rate was 12.68%. It was also the same month that we had the rebasing that the CBN introduced the asymmetric corridor for the monetary policy rate. Then it was minus 400 plus 200 basis points. And then the monetary policy rate was 6%. The concerns and the expectations was that changing and rebasing the inflation rate, the CPI, would lead to better inflation numbers. However, inflation didn't reach single digit until August 2013. Look at what happened in 2014. We rebased the GDP. Then economic growth was 7.5%. Later tonight, I'll talk about, was that economic growth of 7.5 sustained? Last year when the president came in, the CBN's monetary policy rate was 18.5%. The moving average inflation rate was 21.1%. That has significantly changed. The monetary policy rate, which also is like a proxy benchmark for lending rates, is now 27.25%. And the moving average inflation rate is 33.18%. And so that allows us to clearly say that the rebasing of the GDP is just like changing your economic lens. It allows you to see clearly, more clearly, but it really doesn't change what is in front. Definitely cannot be a strategy since it's just allowing you to see what is in front of you. Rebasing just allows you to clearly know the situation of what you're dealing with.
So talking about rebasing, let's compare now. From the preliminary reports about the economy, how much has changed since the last rebasing of the GDP?
So if we're going to look at it, it's perhaps to look at it about what exactly happened when the GDP was rebased in 2015, what happened in between about 2019, and what is the NBS position. Even though we're expecting its full report this week, it has provided some preliminary information. And in this, and there's some good and there's some bad news. The good news is post the rebasing of 2014, in 2015, what we have by the left column shows that Nigeria's top 7 economic sectors. In the top 7, then you had crop production, number 1, trade, crude petroleum and gas, telco, real estate, food, tobacco and beverages, and construction. What has significantly changed in the last 10 years is that the NBS is saying the good news is real estate a decade ago was position 5, construction was position 7. Now real estate and construction have moved up the ladder. The report we're expecting is meant to show that real estate is now Nigeria's 3rd largest economic sector, and construction is now Nigeria's 6th largest economic sector. Good news for real estate and construction. The bad news, however, is Nigeria's primary source of foreign exchange. Post-rebasing in 2014, crude petroleum and gas was the 3rd largest economic sector. Crude petroleum and gas is now 5th largest economic sector. So we've seen a decline in crude oil, petroleum and gas. Bad news, good news for real estate and construction.
All right, Babajide, will this rebasing of the GDP and inflation rate lead to probably improvements when we talk about economic growth and development in the country?
It might lead to a spike, again, because we are able to see what is in front of us more clearly. It hasn't changed what is in front of us. And perhaps the best thing is to look at when we rebased the GDP in 2014, did the economy grow faster or slower? That will point us to what to expect this week. And if you take a look at what has happened post GDP rebasing in 2014, and if you take a look at the chart of the week, the question is, has Nigeria's economy performed better since its last GDP rebasing in 2014? In 2014, after the rebasing was done, we saw a spike. We had new numbers, bigger numbers. Nigeria was now the largest economy in Africa, so GDP grew by 8%. But again, everything that grows large finds it difficult to even grow larger. And so in 2015, 2016, 2%, 2016, negative, 2017, only 1%. And since then, it's just been 2%, 2%, minus 3, 3, 3. So the expectation is if we have bigger numbers this year, yes, it will show that we've grown relative to a base period. However, will we be able to sustain the growth? And going by our last rebasing, it shows that we possibly will initially have 1 year of spike, and then we'll probably go flat if we don't have a clear strategy. Again, don't forget, GDP rebasing and all of what we're about to see this week is just changing the lens. It doesn't change what's in front of us.
All right, thank you very much. Babajide Ogunsewo, founder of Leadership by Data and, of course, Channels Television's data analyst. Thanks for your time and exciting contributions on the news.
The pleasure is always mine.
Let's head to the southwestern region of Nigeria now, where the governor of Osun State, Ademola Adeleke, has raised an alarm over an alleged plot to cause unrest in the state. According to him, the Minister of Marine and Blue Economy, Gboyega Oyetola, is spearheading the plot in collaboration with the Osun State Commissioner of Police, the Osun State Director of DSS, and the State Commandant of the Civil Defense Corps. The governor alleges that Mr. Oyetola is issuing illegal directives to security operatives to enforce the non-existent court judgment on the state's local government, emphasizing that the court judgment in question does not have any quintessential orders. Mr. Adeleke has now called on President Bola Tinubu to intervene and insist on the rule of law.
We have it on good authority that Mr. Gboyega Oyetola has instructed the Osun State Commissioner of Police, the State Director of DSS, and the State Commandant of Civil Defense Corps to mobilize security operatives from within Osun State, effect the non-existing judgment by forcefully taking over the local government on Monday. Mr. Oyetola and the police boss have been holding a series of meetings on how to effect the illegal operations. We affirm that Mr. Gboyega Oyetola has no constitutional authority to issue directive to the security agencies. The fact that Mr. Oyetola is nephew of Mr. President does not confer any such authority on him. We see this as a gross betrayal of trust reposed in the Osun State security officers by the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. I want to state that the current nefarious activities of Mr. Oyetola and bosses of Osun Security Agency constitute great incitement. By instructing the Inspector General of Police, the Director General of DSS, the Commandant General of Civil Defense Corps not to obey an illegal order from his nephew, Mr. Gboyega Oyetola.
Still ahead on the news at 10, National Drug Law Enforcement Agency NDLEA busts the transborder drug trafficking syndicate operating in several states. Please stay with us. Welcome back. The governor of Edo State, Monde Kweholo, has received the report of the administrative panel of inquiry set up on December the 18th, 2024 to investigate the financial dealings of 18 local government chairmen who were impeached in Edo State between September the 4th, 2023 and November 2024, vowing to petition the EFCC over its findings. Well, according to a statement by the Chief Press Secretary to the governor, Freddie Tua, the chairman of the panel, Solomon Imohose, was, while submitting that report and recommendation to Governor Kweholo over the weekend, says that according to findings and forensic investigations uncovered, huge sums amounting to 96 billion naira were either mismanaged and or diverted to private accounts. The statement adds that the panel observed that over 95 billion naira was received from the Joint Allocation Account Committee by the 18 local government area chairmen for the period investigated. It also reports that the funds were not judiciously utilized, as no meaningful projects are on ground to justify the amount received. Besides the impeached local government chairmen who were reportedly indicted by the report, the former governor, Godwin Obaseki, leaders of the factional Democratic Party, among others, were also allegedly pointed out. To security matters now. In what can be seen as a plus in the war against terrorism, the Nigeria Police Force has neutralized multiple insurgents in 2 separate operations in Kebbi and Imo State. In Kebbi State, police rescued a 60-year-old man kidnapped earlier. While 4 kidnappers were killed in the operation, another one was arrested and the sum of 3 million naira in ransom money was recovered. In Imo State, police say they have dealt a significant blow to suspected IPOB and ESN militants with the killing of 2 key figures in a raid on their camp earlier this month. Well, according to the police, 3 people were neutralized in a follow-up operation, while authorities also recovered a cache of weapons and ammunition. In a significant crackdown on dubious practices, operatives from the Anambra State Homeland Security Strike Force, known as Agone Chemba, have apprehended another controversial figure, Onyeze Jesus in a Demili North local government area of the state. And this follows the recent arrest of 2 infamous native doctors whose actions have adversely influenced the youth of Anambra State. This arrest is in response to public petitions demanding an investigation into Onyeze's claims made on social media. The special advisor to the Anambra State Governor on Community Security, Ken Emekai, and the strike force commander conducted an inspection of the suspect's premises. Onyeze is notorious for orchestrating get-rich-quick rituals involving young men and women. And staying with security matters, this time in the northern part of the country, the Boko Haram insurgency has not only brought with it death and destruction, it has also turned several children into orphans since it began in 2009 in Borno State. This report looks at how some of the orphaned children are coping and government's efforts to addressing their humanitarian challenges in Borno State. It's been 15 years of the Boko Haram insurgency in northeast Nigeria. Public infrastructure like schools, hospitals, water supply, and security facilities were affected in the violent extremism. According to the United Nations, over 2 million persons have stayed in the IDP camps in Maiduguri, Jere, and some local government headquarters because of the insurgency. Among them are about 60,000 children who became orphans in the 15 years of the incident in Borno State. Although some of the camps have been closed by the Borno State government, the orphans are still struggling to cope with their livelihood.
What I see has already affected me by that time, because I feel like in my life, apart from being a soldier, to revenge what they have done to my father.
As a child of 7 years, to see both of his parents were killed in his presence. Yeah, that happens to me in Bama local government during the Boko Haram insurgency. Then we now trek from Bama to Kandaga, which is 25 miles in a day.
Aside the sad tales on the impact of their livelihoods, the orphans recount their experiences with the insurgents, and worse still, they are associated with their attacks.
I have always wanted to go to school, but because of the security situation, I had no choice but to stay away. But since we came here, I have joined one of the schools. I want my children to be educated, but no one wants to come close to them. They keep calling them Boko Haram children.
In the face of the challenges, the children still have their aspirations in life.
Who can elaborate on this verse?
Some of the children are able to get some form of education from development partners.
So some of the intervention that we do both the prevention and the response. In terms of the response, looking at this core affected population, basically maybe children that have been impacted by the conflict, separated from their families and communities, as well as those children that are within the communities but are also at risk of other protection issues.
The Borno state government is also working to cater to the livelihoods of the orphans, especially their education and health.
Council has approved the construction and upgrade of healthcare facilities within MMC and some local government areas, including Molai, Askira, Magomeri, Gobio, Dikwa, Benishek, Baga in Kuka local government, Bargu in Shani, and Kaleri in Jere local government area.
The state government in this year's budget will be building CBT or computer-based examination center in the College of Nursing, which will accommodate 250 students. That will, improve on what we are doing, and more additional hostels will be built. And in that way, we will maintain the 600 capacity of students in the College of Nursing in Maiduguri.
While addressing humanitarian crisis, the Borno state government is also determined to ensure smooth reintegration of former terrorists into the society after the de-radicalization program. One of such programs is a football competition organized by the Security Task Force. The idea is to integrate them seamlessly into the society.
In what can be described as a blow to drug traffickers, the National Drug Law Enforcement Agency, NDLEA, has raided a trans-border syndicate, seizing multi-million naira worth of tramadol and other illicit substances, with 4 suspects already in custody after intelligence-led operations in Nasarawa and Abuja. The drugs, concealed in vehicles and cleverly hidden within spare parts, were destined for border towns. A closer look at those intercepted vehicles reveals the traffickers' ingenious methods, as substances were hidden within specially constructed steel compartments concealed behind back bumpers, and the spare tire compartments where nearly 200,000 pills of tramadol were found. The investigation quickly zeroed in on an Onitsha-based dealer, Kingsley Mberry, as a source of the illicit drugs. A swift raid on his home resulted in his arrest and the seizure of 2 additional vehicles. In Lagos State, it takes a major step towards sanitizing driving on its roads with the introduction of the intelligence transport system on some of its corridors. The Commissioner for Transportation in the state, Oshiemi, says the installed speed limit cameras and electronic checks are aimed at enhancing road safety and traffic management. Our correspondent Chris Sillems reports.
Lagos is home to approximately 40% of vehicles on Nigerian roads, which amounts to over 5 million cars. Poor traffic management and reckless driving habits often lead to severe traffic gridlocks, accidents, loss of man hours, and in some unfortunate cases, fatalities. In 2024 alone, data by the Lagos State Traffic Management Authority reported 2,051 road crashes involving 3,754 vehicles, including 143 fatal accidents and several others that resulted in life-altering injuries. To combat these issues, the state government has launched the Intelligence Transport System, deploying speed limit monitoring cameras on 4 major routes.
Inward or outward the 3rd Mainland Bridge, this is Alakbere in Lagos. And what you see behind me is a speed limit monitoring device. It means you cannot do more than 80 kilometers per hour on these routes. And if you do that, you're in violation of Lagos traffic rules, and the fine is 50,000 naira. But how many motorists are actually aware of this?
I'm aware, and you're supposed to maintain 80 kilometers per hour on the first lane.
I'm just hearing that from Chinese for the first time. I don't know that it's not something like that. She's the speed limit. How does it work?
Well, the Intelligent Transport System, which is the ITS, it's a technology Lagos State is presently using to deal with a couple of traffic infractions and also to maintain road safety and data gathering.
Other routes are Bank Anthony Way, which has a speed limit of 60 kilometers per hour, and Arlen Junction, where some motorists call for better awareness to be created.
They should help us to try and bring some sign that will show us that there is speed limit here, so we can know much about it.
It would be nice for people to know. It's not supposed to be something that is shrouded in secrecy. It's not supposed to catch offenders. You know, people should be aware of it so that they can respect it.
So for the Alakbere and the Mobolaji Bank Anthony, those are the speed limit ones, the e-checkpoints. Now for the Allen and Olobopo, those are the e-police ones that speaks to lane discipline, jumping of red lights, illegal turnings, and all of whatnot. You know, for those infractions, they're 20,000 naira. But the point here right now is not about the revenue generation. It's more about public safety and to be able to ensure that people can drive safely and change the behavioral patterns of commuters in Lagos State.
He also notes that the system takes into account incidents where traffic lights are overridden by traffic enforcement personnel.
Well, you know, the interesting thing is that these cameras are actually AI cameras. So they will not only pick the vehicle, they would also pick the traffic warden or whoever is there at that point in time.
Plans are underway to extend the system to other parts of Lagos. The expectation, however, is that reckless driving, especially by commercial bus operators and siren-blaring government officials or security operatives, are checked to restore order and safety to Lagos roads. Chris Lems, Channels Television News.
Nigerians who visited the Holy Land have received their Justice of Peace certificate after their visit to River Jordan. The Justice and Peace certificate signifies their pilgrimage to Jerusalem and the River Jordan. It marks the completion of a profound experience for these individuals. Well, today we hear from some of these pilgrims about their time in the Holy Land and how this journey has positively impacted their lives.
The River Jordan, a place of profound spiritual significance for Christians around the world. It's here, tradition holds, that Jesus Christ was baptized by John the Baptist. Recently, a group of Nigerian pilgrims had the opportunity to experience this sacred ritual for themselves. One by one, clergymen on the pilgrimage trip baptized pilgrims from Lagos, Nigeria, in a moving ceremony. Lagos State officials speak of the deep significance of this act.
We have baptized some of our pilgrims here in River Jordan, rededicating their lives to Christ. They are there to sing and they arise to a new life, and they're also here to renew their commitment to God and to humanity.
Even if you are a sinner and you repent from your sins and you come here, you get salvation. So the purpose of coming is to get salvation where Jesus Christ was baptized.
From the Jordan, the pilgrims journey to another site of immense importance, the Church of St. Peter in Galicantu. This church commemorates where Jesus was examined and imprisoned before the council in Jerusalem, a pivotal moment in Christian history.
Here, Jesus was questioned by the high priest. After the Jews, the elders were gathered together and they were, trying to find a guilt on him, to find something wrong that he has done, trying to find witnesses, false witnesses, to say, but they never agreed, the witnesses, they never agreed on one thing, so they could not really find anything on Jesus.
Some pilgrims even had the opportunity to walk the very staircase that Jesus is believed to have traversed before his arrest and subsequent appearance before Caiaphas, the high priest of Israel. The pilgrimage culminates in the Justice of Peace Award ceremony, a moment of thanksgiving for the grace to have undertaken this profound spiritual journey. Officials urged the pilgrims to carry the lessons of their experience into their daily lives, to let the spiritual renewal they felt in the Holy Land guide their actions back home.
We all have made history by walking on the footsteps of the Lord Jesus Christ and becoming distinguished Jerusalem pilgrims, JP, a title which no one can repeal.
For many, the opportunity to witness the stories of the Bible come to life is a truly transformative experience, a chance to connect with their faith on a deeper level.
Seeing all those things, I could resonate, I could understand the Bible a bit more, and I could appreciate everything that Jesus Christ did, right from his death, burial, and resurrection.
The Justice of Peace certificate, a tangible reminder of a pilgrimage that touched not just their bodies, but their souls, is a testament to their journey of faith.
What a great experience indeed. Away from that, let's delve into the world of sports. Defending champions Rangers International put a halt to league leaders Remo Stars' 8-games unbeaten run in the Nigeria Premier Football League following a 2-0, 2-1 win in Matchday 24 clash, which was played at the Nnamdi Azikiwe Stadium in Enugu earlier this evening. The Kenya-based team, before this defeat, had enjoyed 6 straight wins. The Sky Blue Stars, however, maintain an 8-point lead at the top of the league table as their closest rivals. For Shooting Stars of Ibadan, they suffered a 2-1 defeat to Heartland of Owerri. Emmanuel Emenike lead side picked their own 8th win in the season in 24 games with goals from Chukwuma Agor and John Bassi. Shooting Stars are on 40 points in second position. The Naze Millionaires are 11th with 32 points from 24 games. Away from that, Liverpool moves 7 points clear at the top of the English Premier League as Luis Diaz ended his own goal drought to spark a tense 2-1 win against struggling Wolves earlier today. And his slot side got back on track after an unexpectedly poor week, thanks to Diaz's first goal in 2025 and yet another Mohamed Salah strike. Diaz opened the scoring early in the first half at Anfield as the Colombian forward finally scored for the 13th time this term after 10 games without a goal. Tottenham won the battle of the Premier League's unachievers and 1-0 to inflict another dismal result on Manchester United boss Ruben Amorim. Away from sports now, outside our shores, the Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky says that he will not be attending the Russia-US talks to be held in Saudi Arabia this week. A source within the government says that Ukraine has not been invited and will not send a delegation. And this is coming as President Zelensky has repeatedly said that he will not accept any deal struck without his country's input. An illegal gold mine has collapsed in Mali's western region, killing at least 40 people. Reports say the victims had climbed into open pit areas left by industrial miners to look for scraps of gold when the earth around them caved in. There have been conflicting reports about the number of people killed. A local police source told the AFP news agency that 48 people were killed in the collapse, while the head of an industry union told Reuters that there were 43 victims. Rescue workers have been unable to retrieve the bodies. And the main news again. The Director General of the World Trade Organization, WTO, Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala, has asked African leaders to look inward for funding opportunities to develop the continent. The WTO boss was speaking on the sidelines of the ongoing African Union Summit in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia. We also told you today that Governor Obasanjo of Kaduna State flagged off the distribution of billions of naira worth of farm inputs with the aim of ensuring year-round farming and bolster food security in the state. That's the news at 10 tonight. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Anne Mwawadu. Have a wonderful week ahead. Good night.